What's up, Architecture 10B, and welcome to week 11 of our semester. This week we'll be kicking off into design development, and everybody has just finalized their schematic design. We're looking now at week 11 to see how we can take our massing schemes and our understanding of the site and research into the next steps. And so the first thing that we're going to kick off this week is a little bit of inspiration, right? As designers and architects, we need to inspire ourselves to really push our creative outlook, not only just into the set parameters that we've already identified for our clients or for the program that we need to incorporate, but we got to let our minds wander a little bit and look at things and sometimes the way people either solve problems or how other projects may fail at solving problems. So this week we'll take a look at inspiration, and I've pointed out a few precedents for you to take a note of. Some work with an existing building, which will be very similar to the market conditions on lot 2 and 4. And some of them are just new interventions in which you can consider either like a modular type of living, materiality, and all that jazz. So let's dive in. For those of you looking to, I guess, preserve somewhat of the existing building in the market, this is sort of an inspirational shot here to kind of show you, how much of the existing building will you retain and how much will you keep. At this point, I think all of us have massed out more or less what we want to position our programs to be, and now it's a matter of refining those details and seeing where maybe we can place windows or entrances to these spaces that we've created. This, for example, is a very narrow lot, which can be very similar to someone who is maybe on lot 3 of our site, or maybe just somebody that wants to do a little micro house inside of the overall lot. This is a vertical window solution to kind of create lighting all the way through the residence, right? Here's another intervention in how we look at, again, breaking through that barrier, right, of the existing conditions of a building, letting that new language. I think you've heard me speak a lot about identifying the two languages, something that's already existing and then something that goes into defining that new language. And so you sort of create this hybrid architecture, if you will, right, where you have the old and the new, and whatever the new can contain. And then this is an example of what about blowing out that roof on the, let's say, existing market? What if you were to create an outdoor space like this that's actually all community and accessible to the public? These are just ideas to kind of generate and get your creative juices flowing, if you will. Not saying that you should, do this intervention as you see it here today, but just to think outside of the box and get some other ideas inside of your design minds. And when we're looking at something like this, you see the brick, you see the wood, you see the metal. We're really now having a conversation about materiality, right? So let's say you've identified that you want to have the second story of your massing includes a bedroom. And off to that bedroom to the left, you have some kind of balcony situation in between buildings. So what does that look like? And what do the windows and the lighting situations look like inside the building, right? These are all sort of the next details that I want you to really be mindful of as we move to the design development phase. And again, this is actually just down the street from our site. This is an architecture by Michael Rotundi, and it's in the 90s. And what I want to really point out here is their ability to work with an existing building, introduce materials in which you sort of understand that new language, but yet it's still somewhat in the contextual setting of what the architecture there is. And so even though it's a new language, you're kind of integrating it with what's existing as well. And so, most of us have identified the clients, the users, the program that each user is going to require. And so with these needs come, the architecture that we're designing and essentially creating for our clients to live in. So the second component of that is, what does this actually look like, right? The research that we've done in terms of typologies in Lincoln Heights, residential and both commercial corridors being addressed in this very crucial intersection, right? And how can the language that you're introducing be found as new or be visibly new, but also relate back to the old architecture? like the Queen Anne or the Craftsman, or the ranch styles that you see there. There's a lot of historic architecture that either we can make an ode to and celebrate it, and or if we're introducing something new, what is the basis of introducing that new language that we're going to see in your architecture? So let's talk about some precedents really quick. These have been more or less residential precedents that I've pointed out, in which we can identify, let's say, the problems that we are aiming to solve for our clients via design with our proposals. But what I want to really point out here is, how have other people solved similar problems, right? And can we walk away with something that maybe we can deploy or implement in our designs? So this week is going to be really heavy on seeking out architects, projects, or other things that are happening in the world that maybe address the discussion of, let's say, the COVID-19 solutions that we're implementing, the community situation and living that we're sort of proposing for the site. If somebody has, let's say, I've heard like a bakery in the program, right? How has somebody addressed that design type before? And what we're really doing here is learning from others on how to then extract what works for ourselves. And so let's look at this house really quick. This is the expandable house, and this is located in Nonsa, Indonesia. And the architects are the Urban Rural Systems. And in this residence, what I want to kind of talk about and highlight here is materiality again. Everything's kind of constructed with these local materials that are found near or on the site, and the actual components of the architecture that make it expandable, right? So they have this sort of makeshift roof that's expanding vertically to accommodate a second story after the first story is constructed. And if you notice, from the first story to the second story, the paneling systems are similar. There's a language that's shared in terms of windows and slats and all that. And there's just the basic concrete form. And then as the roof kind of continues to be expanded, the house is also expanded horizontally to accommodate for some circulation on the right and a garden space that you'll see a close-up in a bit. But the overall concept is to keep the main structure of the house, like bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen, all those are actually enclosed spaces. And then when it comes to like the living spaces, these are considered expandable by means of dolly systems or pulley systems that kind of reveal light. So here we're looking at a fixed space, right? You have brick, you have concrete, you have tile, you have the lighting panels. And this is sort of that outdoor space that I was saying. So by creating shutters or like a pulley system of shutters, you're able to either enclose this sort of hallway and or expand it into the garden, which you can sort of see here. It's just a vertical green garden that runs all through the residence. And I know some of you have shared in your proposals that, given COVID-19, the whole working at home, the inability to actually go outdoors, greenery is actually really important. Having a connection to a garden space is really important. So how have other people done, interior gardens before? Things that don't require you to leave your house to, do gardening or do vertical gardens, or, grow their own food in terms of, let's say, a response to the crisis. How are people growing their own food now? Or how will your clients actually grow their own food in order not to go to supermarkets anymore? So I want you to dream a little bit, but also go into the research of other architects to see how they have either proposed something similar or have implemented systems for something that you are looking to do. Right, here's another one. Let's take a look at Oriente 430. This is a residence in Mexico City, Mexico, and it is done by Taller M. And this is a residential project, vertical, pretty straightforward, having the car access at the bottom there on the right. And I think there's a group that mentioned they wanted to do subterranean parking. This can maybe be a fruitful idea in terms of how you do manage the car in the overall micro community of the site. Now in this one, take a look at the way that they've addressed the private space of, let's say, a bedroom, and then you have a separate sort of catwalk, and then there's the connection to the city, right? So I can sort of see this working on, let's say, Broadway, or for those of you who are located on the Griffin Avenue side too, having this sort of visibility and access to the street, yet being private enough for you to retreat from that facade of the street into a more private space. And in the residence itself, I think one of the biggest concepts here is lighting, right? And this sort of idea that the central space that creates this lighting through the whole building is circulation. And then you have a visual connection through to people kind of coming across. Again, this idea of kind of lighting, window space, I mean, these are all important details. I think a lot of us pointed out that living and working at home kind of created this space of seclusion or just isolation. And so a visual connection to the outside, to the city outside, is a really big deal right now. And, you know, see and think of creative ways in which you can have your clients be working, let's say, in their workshop, but still be part of Lincoln Heights in some visual way. Okay, now let's talk about the Love Walk House. This is a residence that's in Camberwell, United Kingdom, and it's done by Vine Architecture Studio. And this one addresses really more for those of you who are working with the existing market and want to preserve the facades and, let's say, the existing openings of the market. So you have this sort of Victorian style house in which it's been preserved and kind of upkept. The openings, I mean, for the original doors and windows, replaced with new ones, but the original brickwork has remained. And in the interior, it's completely different, right? You have beautiful lighting, natural lighting going in and out of the space. The materials are in high contrast to the brick, you know, using metal, using woods, keeping this sort of nice and airy. If you look at the photo on the left, for example, you know, you can sort of see something like this working for those of you who are, let's say, in lot 4, if you wanted to carve out a part of that market, right, and create a sort of terraced space between the neighbor and the existing marketplace. It doesn't have to be, you know, a ground level, let's say, garden. You can maybe make this on the top. Creating different carvings around the mass of the existing marketplace, still remaining, and some new intervention kind of coming in your design kind of showcasing a little bit. And so let's talk about the next steps. Now that we're going to talk about next steps, what I really want you to focus is you already identified the set of parameters for the clients. You've identified the program that they need, and everybody has narrowed down to one design scheme in which you're going to now further develop. And now what I mean about design development is we're going to start playing around with how you actually make these massings real. So everyone has gone through the schematic design operations, let's say, where we had the, you know, default stock program and how you collapse them to make them closer together, how you shifted the volumes one way or the other to create open spaces, etc. This is all kind of where we're at right now, just blocks and massing and playing around with these sort of shapes. So the next steps is giving these shapes actual plans and starting to resolve the connections of these spaces, so we're able to understand the functions of each massing, and we're able to understand how you circulate, let's say, from bedroom 2 to bedroom 1, how you circulate from the first floor to the second floor. And so this week, we're going to focus on taking the schemes that you already massed out, looking for ways in which you want to, let's say, put into the design, like the examples I showed, those precedent case studies, whether it be materiality, you know, something that you found in the research of Lincoln Heights, based on also maybe the architectural typology of the area. And then you're going to bring those ideas in, and we're going to start solving the problems via plans. And each room is going to have, you know, their labels, and we're going to have the connections, and we're going to be able to see how your users move about the space, how somebody accesses the site and the space from the overall lot, and start to further develop these to become a realistic residential project. So that is what this week will entail. If you have any questions, we will have an individual sort of one-on-one critique. I'm going to break up the groups, and I want to go with each individual for a few minutes just so I get a sense of your own design. And then we'll kick off again Wednesday with a more group approach, so I'm able to see the overall micro city approach. In 2 weeks, you will have your floor plans due for your designs, and that will include a set of plans which we are all familiar with drawing now from our King's Roads house. We're going to have a site plan, a roof plan, floor plans, elevations, and maybe some preliminary sections, but really it's going to be the resolution of the floor plans that we're going to focus on for the next few weeks, and putting in any ideas that may be relevant to COVID, to the community, to Lincoln Heights in general, in regards to precedents that you're bringing forward in architectural moves or designs you've seen. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your projects.